Welcome in, everyone. Today we're diving deep into something, well, I think it's something we all think about a lot, happiness.
Yeah.
We've got this piece called What Do You Think About Happiness? And it really gets you thinking. Is happiness just this like constant feeling?
Right.
Or is it something, I don't know, is it something else, maybe something a little more complicated?
You know, it's so interesting how this piece right away, like, challenges how we usually think about happiness. Like, it's this thing we can achieve.
Yeah.
You know, like, we talk about achieving happiness. Like,
Right.
It's like some point you get to, but this source is saying it's way more fleeting, like almost these little moments that just sort of appear and disappear. Like, almost like when you try to catch raindrops.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever tried to do that? Like, you see those raindrops falling and you put your hands out to catch them?
Yeah.
They're gone before you can even, like, I don't know, before you can really feel them.
Right.
It makes you wonder, do we do that with happiness too?
Yeah.
Like, if we just get that one thing, you know?
You know, that promotion or that relationship or that, I don't know, that thing you've always wanted. Then you think you'll be happy. But what happens when you actually get it? I mean, does it really last?
That's exactly it. That's the paradox. The source points out how much we link happiness to stuff outside of us. Things we can buy, our accomplishments, even, you know, our relationships with other people. And yet, you're right, like, you get those things. Does it stick around? You think about a time when you got something you really thought was going to make you happy.
Yeah.
Like a new car, or maybe you finally got a big win at work.
Right.
Did that happiness just, like, stay there? Or did you end up looking for the next thing to go after?
It's like we're always looking ahead to the next thing that will make us happy instead of just appreciating what we already have.
Yeah.
And speaking of, like, how we're wired, the source even quotes Eugene O'Neill. You know how he said, "Man is born broken, he lives by mending. The grace of God is glue."
It makes you think, maybe struggling is just part of being human. Like, happiness isn't avoiding the bad stuff. It's more about, I don't know, how we put ourselves back together, like how we find those good moments in the middle of it all.
What's really interesting here is that this idea, it kind of echoes what different philosophies say, even some religious texts too. The source talks about a verse from the Quran. "Indeed, we have created man into hardship."
Wow.
It's not afraid to talk about hardship. It's like, it's saying that going through tough times, it's just built into being human.
I think sometimes we forget that. You see everyone on social media and they make it seem like their lives are perfect.
Yeah, totally.
You start to think everyone else has it all figured out and they're just like always happy. But then this piece reminds us, you know, everyone has their own problems, their own hard times, even if they're not showing it.
There's this really, like, powerful example the source uses. It talks about how we always want what other people have, especially when it comes to stuff, you know? Like, the person who doesn't have a car, they wish they had one.
Right.
Then the person with a regular car, they want that fancy car. But then the person with the fancy car, they might be wishing they had someone else's peace of mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can't buy peace of mind. It's got to come from somewhere else. From inside, I guess.
And that's such a big point here. Real contentment, maybe it doesn't come from things. Maybe it comes from something inside you, like feeling peaceful and okay with things, even when life's going up and down.
Yeah, it's like when you finally let go of something that's been, you know, weighing you down, and you feel that feeling of freedom, like a weight off your chest.
Right.
You can finally breathe again. You can't just buy that.
Absolutely. And, you know, talking about things we can't control, this piece goes on to talk about how happiness, it doesn't last. It uses this really beautiful image, a rainbow.
Oh, yeah?
You look up and you see it, you know, that arc of colors in the sky. You feel that, like, wonder. But it's gone so fast.
I think that's what makes happiness so bittersweet, you know? Knowing that those good moments, they won't last.
And sometimes, I don't know, I think knowing that actually takes away from the joy while it's happening.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like we're always worried about when it's going to end, instead of just, like, enjoying it while it's here.
Right, exactly.
And this piece, it's honest about how even our close relationships, the ones that make us happy, they can also cause us pain. Think about it. Have you ever felt that?
Oh, yeah.
The pain of being apart, or like someone betraying you, or even just, you know, loving someone who doesn't love you back.
I think we've all been there in some way. A relationship that ends, or a friendship that fades, or, you know, losing someone you love. Those things can really affect how happy we feel. And yet, even knowing that, I think most of us would still choose to love, to connect, to be open to other people.
Yeah.
Because those connections, that's what gives life meaning, you know? What I find so interesting here is that this source talks about how important it is to be vulnerable. It's like to feel that real joy of being close to someone. You also have to be open to the possibility of getting hurt.
It takes a lot of courage to do that, to be vulnerable, to let people see the real you, even the parts that aren't perfect or easy to show. And that reminds me, the piece talks about this idea of wearing a mask of happiness.
Right.
Like, how often do we see someone and think they have it all? But under the surface, maybe they're struggling with something.
It makes you think. You never really know what someone else is going through. We see their social media, or how they act around people, and we think we know how happy they are, but that's not always the whole story.
It makes you wonder how many people are hurting but hiding it. It makes you think, maybe we should all be a little kinder to each other.
Yeah.
We're all fighting our own battles, right?
Exactly. And this leads perfectly into the next thing the source talks about,
Yeah.
that everything is temporary. It's a simple idea, but it really makes you think.
It does. The good times don't last forever, that's for sure. But the bad times don't either. It's like this constant back and forth, this never-ending change that we're all a part of.
It's so interesting to me how much we try to fight that idea, that things change.
Yeah.
We want to hold on to the good times so badly we're scared to lose them, and we do anything to avoid the bad times. But maybe, just maybe, there's a different way to look at it.
I'm curious, what do you think this source would say about that? How should we think about the fact that things are always changing?
Well, I think maybe instead of trying to control it, maybe we can try to find peace in accepting it, Accepting that everything changes, the good, the bad, the happy, the sad, it's all temporary. And maybe in that acceptance, we can actually be more present. We can appreciate each moment more as it comes.
So instead of holding on to the past or worrying about the future, we can just focus on being here now. It's a hard thing to do, but it also feels kind of freeing,
It is. It means letting go of the idea that we're in control, which we really aren't. And it lets us be okay with not knowing what's going to happen next, maybe even find some excitement in that.
It's like that quote, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain.
I love that.
It's not about pretending the hard parts of life aren't there. It's about finding a way to go through them with grace.
And maybe even finding a little joy along the way. Because even when things are hard, there's still beauty, still connection, still those moments of grace.
Absolutely. And that seems to be what this source is getting at. It's not about trying to find some big, ultimate happiness. It's about finding meaning in what we go through, good and bad. And then maybe, just maybe, happiness will come along too.
That's powerful. Maybe the key to a good life isn't chasing happiness. It's about living a life with meaning. And the source even brings up Leo Tolstoy. He said, only people who can love deeply can also feel deep sorrow. It's like he's saying that being able to feel deeply, whether it's joy or sadness, that means you're really living.
I love that. It means we don't have to avoid those hard feelings, the pain, the heartbreak. We can let ourselves feel it all because it's all part of what makes us who we are.
And maybe instead of seeing happiness and sadness as opposites, maybe they're two sides of the same thing. They both have something to teach us. They both make our lives richer.
So how do we do that? How do we stop chasing happiness and start living a life with meaning? What does that even look like?
Well, I think it starts with what we talked about before. Being present. Paying attention to the small things, the everyday things that we usually don't even notice. Finding joy in the simple things, the things that really matter.
The source talks about these small moments of light. That's such a beautiful way to play it. Those little bits of joy we find in unexpected places, like a cup of coffee on a cold morning, or a good conversation with someone you care about, hearing someone laugh, or even just, watching the sunset.
Yeah. Those moments might seem small by themselves, but when you add them all up, they make life beautiful and meaningful. They remind us that even when things are tough, there's still so much to be thankful for.
And that takes us to the core of it all, doesn't it? Gratitude. Maybe feeling grateful for the good things, big or small. That's how we find real happiness.
It's about changing our focus. Instead of looking at what we don't have, look at what we do. Instead of chasing some perfect happiness, just appreciate what's here, what's good right now.
Yeah, realizing that happiness isn't some far off place. It's a way of living. It's finding those small moments of light and really feeling them, not just letting them pass us by.
What's really interesting is how that connects back to, happiness not being a destination, but coming from living a meaningful life. Those little moments of light, they're like guides, showing us the way to feeling like our life has purpose.
It's like they're little clues leading us back to who we really are, back to what really matters. that Viktor Frankl quote, "Man's search for meaning is the primary motivation in his life, and not a secondary rationalization of instinctual drives." It's pretty powerful. That need we all have to find our place, to figure out why we're here.
It is. And I think this source is saying maybe we don't find meaning like looking for some big, huge purpose. Maybe it's about paying attention to the small things that happen every day, the moments where you feel connected, like you belong, like you're happy.
It's like all those little moments, they're each a tiny piece of a puzzle.
Yeah.
And when we put them together, we start to see the whole picture of our lives. And maybe, just maybe, that's how we find that peace we're all looking for.
I think so. And it doesn't mean pretending the hard stuff isn't there or acting like everything is perfect. It's about realizing that even when things are hard, even when you're sad or hurting, there's still beauty, still joy. You can still find meaning.
It's about being okay with all of it. The good, the bad, everything. It's about finding those bright spots, those little bits of joy, even when it feels dark. And remembering that we're not alone in all of this.
We're all in it together. Everyone's figuring out their own path, facing their own challenges, trying to find their own meaning. And maybe, just maybe, when we share our stories, when we help each other, when we remind each other of those small moments of light, we can help each other find our way.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. It gives me a lot of hope. So, as we finish this deep dive into what happiness really is, I want to leave you with a question. What are those small moments of light for you? What are those tiny bits of beauty and meaning you can hold on to, even when things are hard?
Yeah. And how can you be more aware of them? How can you really appreciate them? How can you let them fill you up with gratitude and wonder? Because those moments, even though they might be short, they're what make life worth living.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, keep looking for those moments of light. They're out there just waiting to be found.